Hello and welcome back. Another episode in the book of Scrim. My name is Martin Heron and I am a practicing artist, and as you may or may not already know, I'm just archiving and documenting these older sketchbooks rather than leave them mouldering around in a box in storage. So they've been going out on the shelf and I've been randomly picking them off and doing a quickish recording of them. So here we go. Moleskine again was my favorite go-to sketchbook and still is at times. Okay, March 2016. That's a while ago, to say the least. So I don't tend to start on these first few pages because I just don't like how they're joined together, but there you go. So here we go. So rather than using a scrim in some of these, I went through a period where I was just using things like electrical tape and duct tape, but the scrim, you will see, gets introduced. So yeah, this is the green and black electrical tape, and so I began kind of getting very immersed in the kind of strange optics of this particular tape. Really like almost the torn like ends of the tape coming out here, but also there's sort of semi-woven effect happens within the process here. So it's basically the same process, except it's just a red tip, and they are kind of laid down in a sort of way that it sort of weaves in and out. Not every piece, but I think it looks like every other one. So a duct tip, I found different types of, went through lots of different tips to kind of experiment with. This is a heavier duct tape with a weave in it, sort of reinforces it. This is more just a plastic, sort of an acrylic, lighter version of that. Not lighter in colour though, but sort of just got a deeper tone of the orange, would mix for a nice contrast. And here is a blue masking tape. And again, I find with these tips, if you just, work with the particular tip, you kind of make it do quite a lot of different things. But yes, I went through a period of trying to push this quite far. I've got various, but kept most of them in sketchbooks really. So yeah, create very kind of like fixed line drawings here with black tip and white tip. But yeah, with some interesting outcomes actually. So we're back on the green and yellow tip here. Again, just trying to almost sort of do a continuous line, but and here I've been trying to make it kind of go behind each other, and so that the overlap wasn't just all on one surface. It was actually some behind, in front of others. You get the idea. So whereas the previous one didn't have a beginning and end, we do have a beginning and end here. And some more honey and blue. Quite interesting process really. Here was quite strange because I was kind of joining, but then it's sort of the tip almost a bit elastic, so it sort of stretches away from itself sometimes. It leaves these interesting little gaps, but you can kind of see clearer here how it kind of goes in behind. It'll come out in front somewhere else. So and 2 different masking tapes, so your standard creamy coloured masking tape on the blue. Yeah, I was quite excited to find this sketchbook actually, because I'd sort of forgotten, I'd virtually forgotten I had done these. And they're, yeah, there's something else really. Yeah, this grey duct tape, very strange stuff, and you can see how heavily textured, and that's because of the heavy weave within it. That's really heavily reinforced and quite difficult to tear. Makes a quite nice contrast with the electrical tape. So yeah, brown electrical tape. And so for anyone who's familiar with these electrical tapes, you'll know that what the sort of colours that they come in, and I did find some with a sort of like this kind of purplish colour, but yes, slightly different on the process of the, you know, weaving some and not weaving others, but this created a really nice interesting grid here. Yes, back on the drawing of lines. Yeah, and then I started the foldovers, and I've gone back to this quite a bit. I really do like where it just folds over and creates a little, like a little tab sticking up, and you can kind of push that down into position where you want. There's 2 different tones of the blue on the electrical tape. So here I started to kind of get a bit more, you know, just pushing it down, creating like there's a brown layer in the background, then there's a blue layer, then the green comes over the top of that. So they're they're not woven in or anything, they just stuck right down on top, but you can see how heavy, and just working with these heavy folds and wrinkles. And it's kind of almost painterly in a way. It's almost like dragging the brush mark of oil paint sort of like through, you know, through the surface. So yes, and I jumped back to trying to attempt another one of those line drawing pieces with this, but I'm not as successful, I don't think. Yeah, this was a bit, I think it was the red and the yellow and the green worked off each other, and it was quite fluorescent in a way. So yeah, that was one of the other processes I had going, where I'd cut off little bits of tape and then place them down, and trying to make some sort of pattern, some sort of grid format with them. Here I have them cut into little triangular shapes. So here what has happened is I've literally been tearing the tape, so it's a combination of parcel tape, masking tape, electrical tape, and so I would take it and try and tear it or just pull it apart to leave very kind of like rough, sort of semi-stretched, sort of wrinkly folded edge, especially with the electrical tape, because of the, you know, the plasticity of it and the stretchability, so it pulled a little bit, and then just placing those down. This is something I've often thought I need to go back to, you know, contrasting against the kind of cut lines of the, you know, they're not perfectly straight across, but they are much more finished, as it were, as a cut mark. So there's a nice kind of contrast happening there. And the same again, but this time it's just using electrical tape. It makes for quite a heavy piece of work actually. So back to the creating the line drawing thing, except just tearing off the masking tape this time and then just following it around, and then back onto this kind of strange thing with the stripy green and yellow this requires a bit of time looking at, and yes, it does play havoc with the eyes really, but I quite like that. The brain and the eyes really have to work hard over these sort of pieces. So there's movement in the piece without any movement. That's all done visually, and that's what stripy lines tend to do. But yeah. Now here is, again, with this folding over of the tape, you can kind of see in here where, look, I've just folded this over, popped it back, and then in it, being very deliberate about the process. They're almost, some of them are almost sort of like quite graphic, and you know, playing again, it's that optics thing. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, I'm totally less successful, I think, with this one, trying to kind of work out placing down background color and then coming up with this over the top, sort of to sort of delineate each kind of separate color, and I don't think this worked. So back to this. Yeah, I remember being quite pleased at the time about producing these. So yeah, and then more of the laying down the heavy, just placing it down, not trying to actually create anything too fixed like the previous, just wanting to get the color drawn down. Same with the red, and you can see where it's lifted from the paper and pulled back, and there's quite a lot of energy in what is just a very fixed line of tape. Yeah. So just to contrast all of that, just a simple little bit of orange duct tape with the yellow and green stripe laid on top. There's just something about the simplicity of that works. And again, obviously not, I haven't sort of like completed what I wanted to do with this green and yellow stripy tape. So more things have happened. Yeah. Folds again. It's great going back through these because it makes me kind of realize how, you know, did I stop off doing these at the wrong time? Do I need to actually do some more with them or reintroduce them into the work because I got so fixed on just using Scrim? Here again, I've gone into introducing the Scrim into the top. This is a kind of silver foil tape and electrical tape and Scrim. Quite like the strange sort of semi-reflective quality of that silver. So here you'll see this is where it's still tacky, where it connects to the previous page. It's something I quite like, the pulls up bits of detritus or bits of paper from the other page. This might be something that can be utilized, and use this here to stick something else on. So again, the silver and green. Quite nice, that semi-reflective quality, like I said before. And then look, this folding, but it's a very deliberate, you know, you kind of get to, obviously working with something, you get to know how it will behave as you kind of work with it. So you know you can achieve a very loose or a very tight fixed fold and turn or a corner. Yeah, just laying down a brown tape, see what would happen. These were quite interesting. So I found another sort of yellow duct tape and something else to play with, and a brown. So but I always be on the lookout whenever I'd be out, whether it be builders merchants or any sort of DIY stores, or always went to the section where there'd be kind of tips and, you know, painting materials and various things that wouldn't all be in the same place in a store. So there were some interesting finds. I used to have quite a big collection of these rolls of all sorts. So yeah, again, as you can see, the scrim and but that turns up in other sketchbooks as well, on smaller versions of this. Is again the simplicity. So I clearly wasn't finished with this stripy tip. Maybe there's more to do. Maybe I'm still not finished with it. This is pulling me back into, there was something really kind of quite engaging, really quite exciting about the process at the time of using these tips. So there you go, that there. There's a few bits just stored in the back. There's probably some of that, yeah, there's be some tips, some of that silvery tip. However, there you go. That was during 2016 from March. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll catch some of the other videos, and I'll catch you all again. Bye.